Modernism is a broad concept that can be used to describe architecture, city planning, art, literature, film, and lifestyle. It represents a break from the past and a new way of looking at things. Many new techniques are incorporated in modern buildings, allowing urban areas to achieve a significant increase in density by use of the skyscraper. Modernism breaks away from the intense individualism of the symbolist period of art and acknowledges aspects of collective life and the new style of its public monuments. Modernism fostered a period of various experiments in different fields of art and architecture from the late 19th century to the mid-20th century, especially in the years following World War I. As stated by Le Corbusier, the center must be modified where it is. It crumbles and reconstructs itself over the centuries, just as a man changes his skin every 7 years and a tree produces new leaves every year. We must confront the city center and transform it, which is the simplest solution and, more simply, the only solution: the rhetoric of modernism. In fact, many famous architects, including Mies van der Rohe and Frank Lloyd Wright, were inspired by Le Corbusier. He could disseminate and elaborate upon the architectural principles concisely but powerfully. The 5 points of new architecture encompasses his most representative tenets for revolutionary architectural thoughts of the 1920s. These points contain the most direct architectural theories and successfully represent the ideas of the contemporaneous villas during the interwar period. Among Corbusier's work, Villa Savoye is the most important work representing 5 points. It is a manifesto of future living style. For example, similar to the Barcelona Pavilion, Corbusier also applied a flexible floor plan that allowed walls to be positioned freely by adding columns under the deck. Le Corbusier founded the Notre Dame at Ronchamp in the radiant city of Saint-Baume in Provence from 1945 to 1960. In order to represent aspects of feminism within modernism, the focus of Le Corbusier of this church is to show the relationship of light and darkness in the form of light emitting from everywhere and shining on the statue of Mary. Le Corbusier's chapel is closer to the modernist ideal than critics have allowed. An irony is that this unbeliever produced what is arguably the most convincing piece of religious architecture in the 20th century, Flora Samuel. Mies van der Rohe was a revolutionary architect who also became one of the founders of modernism. His skyscraper designs became the symbol of modernism, with distinctly large scales designed in a practical way. One of van der Rohe's principal works, the Barcelona Pavilion, was designed for the purpose of representing the new Germany in the 1929 International Exposition in Barcelona, and the building became a symbol of the modern movement in this architectural revolution. Van der Rohe followed the concept of less is more, which focuses more on an overall look instead of small details. He merely applied several walls and columns to support the roof to form the structure as a whole, signifying the concept of free design of the ground plan. This concept is an unprecedented and unique design for architecture. It is a representative characteristic of modernism. A few years later, van der Rohe designed the Seagram Building, located in New York. This is a notable example of the functionalist aesthetic of modern architecture. In this building, van der Rohe chose to build steel frames and glass walls to avoid disorganization. The steel frame is the structure, and the glass walls represent the skin of the Seagram Building. What's more is that van der Rohe applied I-beams to all exposed vertical members to achieve a regular rhythm of column and mullion. The I-beam also added a lean but persuasive decorative element to the facade. In addition, van der Rohe arranged the Seagram Building in a simple and orderly manner, emphasizing the function of this building. Another example of modernism is the Guggenheim Museum, which was designed by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1937 to foster the appreciation of modern art. In arranging the project, he took inspiration from works that he had designed earlier. The Guggenheim has always been viewed as one of the most significant figures of modernist buildings. Wright used the connection between natural light and transparency of convex walls to create amazing effects in his work. The Guggenheim incorporated unparalleled and highly original dendriform columns, guaranteeing unimaginable stability with their tree-like shape. The lily pad formed the shell of the volume that held the offices. Francesco Dalco. Wright connected Louis Sullivan's curvilinear ornament and the term plastic, which indicated a totally opposite idea to the rectilinear architecture of classical tradition and the international style. As Wright surely saw, The ramped garage was a building type wherein novel function, spatial, and structural ideas were shaping a new architecture that not only accommodated, but, via its ramps, simulated continuous movement. The Guggenheim's continuity would also be both material and experiential. The Guggenheim. Skyscrapers also became one of the most significant features in modernism. Since their infancy, skyscrapers have been driven by four main forces: stylistic, technical, legal, and economic. Their style has evolved along with the rival paths of modernism. The early skyscrapers were a range of tall commercial buildings built between 1884 and 1939, predominantly in New York City and Chicago. Chicago's architecture was famous throughout the world during the 1880s and 1890s. Architects whose names are associated with the Chicago School include Henry Hobson Richardson, Dankmar Adler, Daniel Burnham, William Holabird, William LeBaron Jenney, Martin Roche, John Root, Solon S. Beman, and Louis Sullivan. In the book, The Chicago School of Architecture, the Chicago schools were among the first to promote the new technologies of steel frame construction in commercial buildings, and they developed a spatial aesthetic that evolved and came to influence parallel developments in European modernism. Louis Sullivan was an American architect who has been called the father of skyscrapers and the father of modernism. He is considered by many to be the creator of the modern skyscraper, and he was an influential architect, a critic of the Chicago School, and a mentor to Frank Lloyd Wright. One of his most compelling buildings is known as the Sullivan Center. The building is remarkable because of its steel frame structure, which allows for a dramatic increase in window area created by bay-wide windows, which in turn allow for the greatest amount of daylight to be flooded into the building's interior. The lavish bronze-plated cast-iron ornamental work above the rounded tower was also designed to be functional because it needed to be as resilient as a sheet of copper. The use of both bronze and terracotta were important in setting the building apart from others because it was essentially fire-resistant. Beyond aesthetics, however, there are serious questions of cause and effect, propriety and place, structure and style. The most obvious blind spot can be seen in the failure to recognize that the skyscraper's dramatic increase in height and volume may have caused it to overreach itself. The question of design has been reopened by the loosening of the definition of modernist structure, and, at the moment, the exploration of the tall building's inherent power, drama, and beauty offers greater options than ever before. In terms of size, structure, function, scale, and symbolism, human and urban impacts remain the single most challenging design problems of our time.